Hello friends, I welcome you all in this exciting training session being conducted by TNV Academy. Today, in this session, we will discuss about subclause 8.3 of ISO 27001-2013, which talks about the information security risk treatment. So, let's get going and start our discussion. Let me explain you that what we will be covering in this chapter. In this session, we will be covering the last subclause of Clause 8 of ISO 27001-2013, that is, Subclause 8.3. Subclause 8.3 talks about the information security risk treatment plan that an organization has to implement to curb down the risk identified and their impacts on its processes. Now, let us understand about the internal references taken by subclause 8.3. As far as subclause 8.3 of ISO 27001-2013 is concerned, it does not take any reference from any other clause within the standard. It simply asks the organization to satisfy the requirements of risk treatment mentioned in the subclause 8.3. If we talk about the external references that you need to know for understanding the subclause 8.3 of ISO 27001-2013, then you should have an updated version standard copy of ISO 22300-2018 with you. ISO 22300-2018 has definitions for several technical terminologies that are used under different clauses of ISO 27001-2013. Now, let me tell you what are the takeaways from this session. At the end of this chapter, you will be able to understand. Learning 1. What is risk treatment? Learning 2. How an organization plans to implement the risk treatment process it has prepared. Learning 3. What can be the methods of risk treatment? Learning 4. How the risk treatment results are documented. So, let's begin our discussion with a brief introduction of subclause 8.3 by first understanding what is risk treatment. Risk treatment or risk management is the process of identification, evaluation, and prioritization of risk identified by the organization. Risk treatment is the coordinated and economical application of resources to minimize, monitor, and control the probability or impact. Risk can come from various sources such as uncertainty in international markets, threats from project failures, legal liabilities, accidents, natural causes, and disasters. Every organization can face two types of events, negative and positive. Negative events can be classified as risks, while positive events are classified as opportunities. Both of the events are an integral part of the risk treatment plan prepared by an organization. The subclause 8.3 of ISO 27001-2013 addresses to the risk treatment approach that should be adopted by an organization to mitigate all kinds of risk identified by it. It says that an organization should be prepared with a risk treatment plan and ready to implement the same once it has done the risk assessment. Let us now discuss this requirement of subclause 8.3 in detail. The subclause 8.3 states that the organization shall implement the information security risk treatment plan, and the organization shall retain documented information of the results of the information security risk treatment. Friends, it is very important to understand one aspect here. In order to treat information security risk, the organization must perform the knowledge security risk treatment process defined in subclause 6.1.3. During operation of the ISMS, whenever the risk assessment is updated consistent with 8.2, the organization then applies the risk treatment consistent with 6.1.3 and updates the risk treatment plan. The updated risk treatment plan is again implemented. The information security risk treatment process should be performed after each iteration of the knowledge security assessment process in 8.2, or when the implementation of the risk treatment plan or parts of it fails. The process of implementation of the knowledge security risk treatment plan should be driven and monitored by this activity. Therefore, we can say that the requirement mentioned in subclause 8.3 of ISO 27001:2013 is concerned with ensuring that the risk treatment process described in subclause 6.1.3 of ISO 27001:2013, that is, actions to address risk and opportunities, are actually taking place. To meet the requirements of 8.3, an organization must have evidence that gives an idea that the risk treatment plan described in clause 6.1 is being implemented. This process must include the evidence behind the treatment. In simple terms, treatment can be work an organization is doing internally to control and tolerate the risk, or it could mean steps organizations are taking to transfer the risk, for example, to a supplier, or it could be to terminate a risk entirely. Risk treatment should be considered alongside risk assessment and ultimately must be fed into the SOA, Statement of Applicability. 2. Once the risk assessment has been concluded and the risk is rated, the rating is compared to the agreed risk acceptance criteria. If the risk rating is greater than the acceptable level of risk treatment, options need to be considered. There are 4 alternatives for risk treatment. These are: first alternative, mitigating the risk by applying additional appropriate controls. Second alternative, knowingly and objectively accepting the risk. Third alternative, avoiding the risk by avoiding or terminating the activity that creates the risk. Fourth alternative, transferring the associated business risk to other parties. The risk treatment plan you develop cannot simply remain as a statement of intent. It must be implemented. Remember that after the risk treatment has been determined, organizations need to reassess the likelihood and consequence and calculate the measure of residual risk. The risk owner must approve the risk treatments selected and also must accept any residual risk, and this must be documented. Risk treatment is usually done in the form of a simple sheet where an organization links mitigation option and controls with each unacceptable risk. According to ISO 27001, it is required to document the risk treatment results in the risk assessment report, and those results are the main inputs for writing a statement of applicability. This means that the results of risk treatment are not directly documented in the risk treatment plan. The risk treatment plan can be written only after the statement of applicability is finished. This is because the risk treatment plan can be considered as an action plan, where an organization needs to specify which security controls you need to implement, who is responsible for them, what are the deadlines, and which resources, that is financial and human, are required. But in order to write such a document, first, an organization needs to decide which controls need to be implemented, and this is done in a very systematic way through the statement of applicability. And finally, the documentation requirement says that the organization should have evidence to describe that the risk treatment activity is happening. One of the best ways of doing this is to create a full risk register of all organization information, security management risk, and the associated risk treatments. On a regular basis, organization should either review full register or more likely review each item on the register. For example, if an organization have identified 36 items on its information security management risk register, then it is reasonable to expect that it review at least 2 or 3 of these each month. Those listed as high priority items would be reviewed more often than those with low priority, and so on. Friends, I hope you are clear with the requirements of subclause 8.3. Let's move on and discuss the other important components of this subclause. So now, we will learn about the mandatory documents that an organization has to maintain while meeting the requirements of subclause 8.3. The subclause 8.3 of ISO 27001:2013 states that the organization should keep a documented information about the results of the risk treatment plan being implemented. By documenting the same, the organization has a clear picture of its risk management process and is also able to demonstrate that it is meeting with the requirements of the Information Security Management System standard. Now, our next section is how you can practice writing non-conformity for subclause 8.3 through the AFAR report shown on your screen. And at last, but not the least, let us understand the common mistakes which auditors do while performing audit under the subclause 8.3 of ISO 27001:2013. Mistake number 1. Auditors ask irrelevant question for the organization which does not relate with the organization to be audited. Mistake number 2. Sometimes auditors start thinking for the option, while auditor need to understand the client process and to decide if the client can achieve the result of the MSS through their own process. Mistake number 3. Auditors start consulting activities. Mistake number 4. Auditors start expecting document and records in clause where this may not be mandatory requirement. Mistake number 5. Auditors start asking for the documents that are not relevant to the requirements of clause or standard. For example, GST registration, FSSAI registration, etc. Dear friends, we have now come to the conclusion of this training session. See you soon with an exciting new topic. Till then, goodbye.